if anyone showed up to watch this tonight. But I'll hang here for a bit. It's 12:20 in the morning, and I guess I'll hold here for, I don't know, a minute and see if anyone shows up. I suppose I just got done watching SummerSlam on a delay. It was kind of interesting in the sense that, I would have finished the same time as the actual show ended, except that I kept pausing and then didn't realize that there were going to be commercials. And yeah, sure, I could have like fast forwarded to catch up, but I don't know. I was just kind of like half watching it, half not really. Let me turn off the TV behind me. I'm not entirely sure why that's a thing. But yeah, lot of nothing going on right now. I've been doing some writing because I wanted to get the RCR fan meet video up and live. And it's weird because I started making it this week, and it has been over 2 months since. Oh, wait, no. It's only been a month. It feels like longer. So it's been about 2 months since the RCR fan meet. And basically, what I've wanted to do is make like a car roast video of sort of lovingly roasting our fans' cars so that it doesn't feel like it's necessarily mean-spirited. Not that the other ones are mean-spirited, but just that I want people to be able to feel like the old RCR car show videos where it's fun, in a way that is still biting in its commentary in some way. Welcome to those who are here. Thank you for joining. I have no bleh. Can you give an example of like the type of car roast? I mean, some of them, I don't know if I actually use this joke, and I don't think I actually have, but something to the effect of like taking a photo of something like a Jeep Wrangler, like that's all, it's got the bull bars and the light rig and all that stuff, and just thinking like, oh, I got a closet full of Tap Out t-shirts and a pocket full of Marlboro menthol lights, and I'm consistently on my second strike in my parents' home, and that type of thing, where, essentially the best car roasts in a way are creating a straw man to then break down rather than going after any specific and particular individual. Because I realize that after a certain point, you get this cross section of people who that sort of stereotype will end up fitting, and then somebody else will know that stereotype, and so on and so forth, until people sort of come to this realization sort of that, hey, I know who that guy is. I know who they're talking about, the type of person they're talking about. Like, that's kind of what I'm aiming for, to try to elicit that response. Because I know that, like, it's not something that is necessarily easy to do, or simple, or that even makes sense, really, to do at all. But even now, I'm still trying to write jokes for it, because unlike Brian, I don't do my roasting live. I have to dub it in later, because Brian can, like, boom, like, right in front of people live. And I kind of have issues with getting that out, because it's never been particularly easy for me. It's just because, like, my brain doesn't fire off as quick as his does. And so, yeah, I think it's something that I'm getting better at over time, the more car roast videos that I make. But I want to be able to get to a point where I can potentially rattle those off, because realistically, these should be the easiest videos to make, because all it is matching a joke to a visual. There's no larger narrative. It's just one-liner after one-liner, right? I should probably post on Twitter that I'm live, but I don't know that it's actually going to matter. Live streaming now on the second channel. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure why. I guess I got bitten by the yapping bug. Let's go with that. See if that fits. Oh, hey, welcome. And yes, I will always try to have a sexy night within the bounds of reason. So I basically, funny thing today, I went to a tattoo convention at that was held inside of a classic auto mall. So it was all these classic cars. They all have prices on them, and you're able to essentially, I don't know, talk to the people in charge and put in a bid. Because realistically, there's no reason that half these cars shouldn't be snapped up right away. I'm always surprised at the inventory that they have. It's in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. It's an incredible place. And they even have, Michael Keaton's Batmobile. And yeah, so I don't know. I got some silly tattoos. All my tattoos have been spontaneous except this one because it requires a lot more detail and planning. But the other ones, like I just got my most recent niece, her name finally here in Aurebesh, the Star Wars alphabet. And then I got this Final Fantasy VII tattoo. You can kind of see it through the Band-Aid, but it's essentially materia of various forms. So one's a healing materia, one's a support materia, and the other one's kind of, the random type. So what it is that healing is what I want for myself. Support is what I want to be able to do for others. And the last materia orb is luck, because I hope that's what the universe does for me. And so that's kind of the meaning behind the tattoo. It isn't just a nerd thing. And each of the tattoos are kind of slightly off center, and kind of crooked. And these are all things that I didn't intend, but it's also okay because I also understand that, and I mentioned this in a social media post after the convention, that the story of a tattoo, it's not so much just about what you put on your body, but how it gets there. And because all of my tattoos, or the majority of them, have been spontaneous, that's kind of part of the story, is that they're kind of off a bit and they're different, and maybe they make sense and maybe they don't. But it's also a thing where it was something that I wanted to do for myself because I've been working so much that I don't really have much of a life outside of work and outside of maybe like Friday dinners with my family. And so I wanted to do something nice for myself. Oh, thank you, Mordecai. I appreciate that. MZR, the Camry, she is holding up well. Got new brakes and rotors, or pads and rotors, not brakes, but put in, because I took her in for inspection early because there was just, I had to check engine light. I wanted them to check it. I'm like, if you're going to check it there, like, just do the inspection, even though it's, whatever. And so, yeah, but now I have to go back to the Mavis discount tire now and potentially get a new front tire, because I think it can either be like a pebble, but I don't think it is. I think it's a very small, like, nail in my passenger side front tire, and which sucks, but this is what I have savings for to take care of any, special shitty things that pop up. And realistically, like, front tires are not going to cost that much, I don't think. It's one of those things where I just, it's annoying to me because I do all this work to try to mitigate the avalanching, the snowballing of negative, injurious effects that the universe might throw at me. And things still come my way, but I'm better prepared for it now. And so the end result is that I get less stressed out by it, but it's still annoying, because I'm still in the process of learning how to be a good adult, I've had people in my life who have sort of taken the role of, I don't want to say like a dad, really, but kind of like a dad, because realistically, Brian is very much, he's an older brother, but also, he's guided me in matters about cars ever since I met him in grad school, matters about like personal life. He's been a very, very critical element to my development and growth as a person. And my roommate, she has also been, more than anyone in my life, a critical element of my growth and the development as a person, because I'm not, I would not be as good at living an adult life as I am, if it could even be said that I am, without her influence, without her friendship, without her support and her love. It means the world to me. But I also recognize that all the things that I am are a confluence of other things that people have contributed to my life. Like you guys, like seriously, I don't know that I get to a point in my life where I'm confident in doing my own videos without the constructive criticism and the positive reinforcement. But especially, like, it's the combination of those two things. People who expressed that they wanted to support my videos, but also offering, like, hey, maybe you can do this different. Maybe this is what we want to see. This is what we prefer from you and the channel. Like, all of my content has been, oh, hey, Trent Falcon ran. Yeah, great. Oh, thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. I really do. I think the things that I get the opportunity to do are entirely because you guys have helped me get to a point where I'm comfortable enough to do it. And confidence sort of springs from that fount, as it were. Pablo, which was my late father's name. It's a great name. Although he didn't want me to have it, even because it was his dad's name and he hated his name. And it's funny. It is a long tradition of Roman men being named Pablo, and I was like the first one to avoid getting it. But yeah, you said you've been working a lot recently. Do you have a job outside of RCR? Yes. And it actually, I was holding off on like announcing it to anybody, but then like Doug actually announced it on his podcast. But I've been doing auction listings at Cars and Bids, and really I'm just like writing them. And it's great because it's an opportunity to not only learn about different kinds of cars, but also interact with different levels of ownership. People who have just got their cars, people who are new into automotive enthusiasm. Thank you so much, Water Bottle Getting Shot At. Love your guys' content. Hope y'all are doing well. I appreciate that so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can I like that? Is that an option? Is that what the little heart is there for? Is that giving me the... Yeah, I did. Cool. But so yeah, basically, it's fascinating because like there's so much that I'm learning on this job, right? Because I am understanding valuation in a different way, because to me valuation is just whatever the market's willing to pay on these used car sites like Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, when that's not actually reality when it comes to the valuation of the automotive marketplace. You know what I mean? It's like, I guess because there's different levels of care with which a car is treated. So, a Honda Accord that's sold on Facebook Marketplace is not going to fetch the same value as a early 90s Impala that only has like 20,000 miles on it. Everything's going to be going a different path. Now, it's that thing of wanting to learn as much as possible about all types of different cars, but particularly I want to learn more about Porsches because I don't know a whole lot about them. And so and there are so many like differences in what makes a Porsche valuable over another model year of the same generation. Like there's some of them where, certain transmissions are more favorable. There's certain ones where like some of them have that permanent all-wheel drive system and others don't. And it's that thing where I'm always thrown off because I would assume that like there are different options and features that transfer between generations, like, Porsche stability management, Porsche communication management, the Porsche, ceramic composite brakes, and they don't always transfer over, even within the same generation. Well, okay, maybe I don't want to say within the same generation because I'm still, getting there learning. But so much of my automotive knowledge comes from knowledge of cars that are within my financial wheelhouse. So basically cars that have been on Race to the Bottom. So I don't know a lot about Benzes and Porsches and things that I I wish I knew more about. Uh, Twisted Caravan, nice to see you. The Rominator, Romaine, Tomainter, how about 928? Nice. How do I like? How do I like? Can I do it? There we go. That's good. It's one of those things where I wish that my knowledge base were more comprehensive, right? But it's not. And that's okay. But I mean, well, I mean, it's kind of not as an automotive journalist. I wish it were deeper, but I don't know. These are all things that I'm refining my knowledge base about because I want to be able to apply that more diligently to RCR, Drinking my boxed wine. I haven't had boxed wine since when we went down to Tavares's last December and filmed down there. We were in his workshop, and I don't know, I felt like a drink, and the only thing that I could really get, because I didn't want hard liquor, was like a black box wine from a convenience store. I'm like, this is good, and this is my first one since that December, because I'm really not much of a drinker. I used to be, but I just kind of got bored of it. It's boring to me, because really the taste doesn't mean that much to me. So really, the only positive is getting drunk or at least getting tipsy. But I don't really find that all that great. But yeah, my thoughts on old alphas. Well, I don't know that I have any. Yeah, unfortunately, I wish I did. So that I could give you a non-shitty answer. But I'm the king of garbage answers. Uh, See, this is where I need to do more automotive history videos. The problem, I've been sitting on an RCR story for over a year now, where the script is like 75% done, and I just have not had the time to work on it. And I know what you're probably thinking, which is that why are you going live when you could probably be working on this script? But I'm not in the headspace for it right now because currently in the one-liner headspace of trying to come up with jokes for the RCR car meet video, and I have to be in a different and very specific and particular headspace to write RCR stories. But the problem is that YouTube right now favors essentially content mills. Like I have to keep producing. Brian and I have to keep producing to counteract the effects of the algorithm no longer displaying our videos to people because they're not really ad friendly because we're RCR and we've never been ad friendly. That's why everything needs to be constant. That's why the Roman Report exists. It's why I do car roast videos in the summer. It's why Race to the Bottom exists in the first. Well, no, Race to the Bottom exists because Brian. I thought that Brian was essentially not getting out at all, and I thought that that was unfair. That he should have to sacrifice his social life, and so I was like, if I start a show, like, I can be responsible for one video a month, and that just gives you the time to, like, just, hey, I'm not going to think about RCR for a week. I'm not going to do anything for a week. And so that made me feel a lot better because I felt like a lot of pressure was off of Brian, and it gave him the freedom to kind of start experimenting with videos and being more like, sort of classic RCR in some ways, because we were both so constrained by, like, the back to the wall, we gotta freaking do this and get things out ideology, that it was kind of constraining our creativity. So, which brings me back to the RCR stories. I love making them. I want to make more of them. I can't because every single, like, the minute I'm done with one race to the bottom, I'm on to either a roast video, or I'm going to be getting to work on the next Roman report, or I'm doing work at my second job now, which takes up the lion's share of my time because it's an immediate priority to me, because I have people waiting on me who aren't going to be as understanding as Brian. Brian knows I'm still going to get my work done, but I don't know that, you know, I don't want to just slack off and then not get the listings done that I need to get done. I like being, on point, on time, and to a decently high standard of quality within reason, because I'm not going to be perfect, but I want to be as close as I can be. And I will get to the chats soon, but I wanted to explain that the reason RCR Stories has basically gone away for now is because of the churn. It's by having it be a content is king. It gives me less time to do the more thoughtful, long form, considerate things, because I need whatever I'm working on to be done within the next couple of days so that it can be out in time and give me enough time to get to work on the next thing. And so that's why Brian and I are going to start really plugging our Patreon more, in the hopes that we can sort of supplement our income, because for years the Patreon has been there not as a means to, sort of supplement our income. It's been purely for our business account, which is funding RCR's travel, so that when we go to places to meet you guys, when we did the southern road trip, when we did the cross country road trip, when we did the West Coast road trip, when we went to the UK, New Zealand, those were all things that, like, you guys helped make happen for us. We were essentially like, where do you want us to go? And Patreon, like, your support would pay for it. And then after that, we kind of stopped plugging the Patreon. But now it would be more of a supplemental, like, this gives us the freedom to not have to constantly churn out things that we feel we have to, and can instead do the things that we actually want to do because we have a little bit more breathing room. So I basically want to be able to do so much more with RCR Stories. I really, really do. I want to do Carlos Ghosn. I want to do the life and death of, like, Oldsmobile and Holden, even though they have the same ending, which is the same ending as, like, everything, which is that it's GM. But until we get the Patreon going and hopefully get to a point where the Patreon can kind of subsidize the RCR Stories, I don't know that I have the time to actually do them anymore, which sucks, because I still am going to try. Even if nobody donates to the Patreon, I'm still going to try, because it's a matter of principle. Like I said, I was going to make a video for you guys. Like I said, there was going to be another RCR story, and it would bother me on a fundamental level if I wasn't able to follow through on that. This one is probably going to be in the 2-hour range, and I want to be able to deliver the quality that I think that you guys expect from me, but even if you don't expect it, the kind of stuff that you actually deserve, because I feel like automotive YouTube is kind of this in this shifting, landscape where, some of the people are going off and starting their own channels. Some are getting out of YouTube altogether, which is completely understandable, and I totally support it. Stability is king, and YouTube doesn't provide a lot of stability. But I also understand that there is a creative feeling that needs to be satisfied. There's this creativity that needs to be addressed in all of us, and a lot of us don't necessarily get to exercise our creativity in our jobs. I do, but not always in the way that I want, you know? Half the time, I don't know what the Roman report for that month is going to be until, like the week before it comes out, because I wait until, close to the end of the month, because I've literally just finished a race to the bottom, and I got to figure out what subjects are even newsworthy enough to talk about. And I had seen a couple, even though we had just done a regular review where I mentioned in my half of the script and Brian voiced it, which is that like the sedan market is in trouble. And I decided to take that idea and like extrapolate that and link it to the news that the Nissan Altima wasn't going to be continuing after like 2025, and turn that into a Roman report, because I feel like there's something there. I don't know what next month's Roman report is going to be about. Maybe it'll be about, because the news story that it's about may not have happened yet. Right now, if I had to guess, it would probably be about like the shifting nature of automotive YouTube. I mean, Alanis King and Doug DeMuro, they've already done videos on that in the past month. So I don't really want to be riding their coattails. So if I can find a different subject, I probably will. But it can't be history. It has to be current, because that's what separates the Roman report from RCR stories. So I'll go up and see what other people are saying right now. Let's see. Favorite alcoholic beverage? Probably wine, honestly. Either that or like a nice brandy, like a bourbon. I don't know, like those dark liquors. I'm not really clear liquors. I used to be like really into like lager, but I don't know. It just became too heavy for me, and it made me feel lousy. So, red wine is kind of hard to go wrong with for me. Like, I'll always be, and it doesn't even have to be good red wine. It can be boxed wine, although this is good. What's weird is that, like, this is supposedly 500 milliliters, so 3 glasses. Like, I don't feel anything, so that's kind of why I like it. I could have it, I can enjoy the flavor. I could get, like, maybe a tiny bit of a buzz, but it's not going to, like, get me drunk or worryingly, out of sorts. So, I call it a killable buzz, because it's something that I could put out with a couple of waters, just like Smokey the Bear taught us to put out forest fires, or campfires, so that they don't become forest fires. But let's see. Strange question. Generic says, how does your nephew feel about your new car when you put a lot of emphasis on Red Betty's impact in his life in reference to your video on its departure? He misses Red Betty a lot. I know that much. He was disappointed to have missed the RCR car meet because Betty was there. But he had other engagements, and I don't know, maybe next year, and hopefully Betty will be there. Hopefully the Patreon takes off and I can buy Betty back. But she's currently owned by a wonderful man and his wonderful family. And I could not think of a better home for her than his garage, honestly. Anything I consider annoying, about this or in general, because in general, I generally find, annoying. Uh, I can't think of any at the moment. I'm sure it'll come to me in a bit. If I had my CC associated with Google, like when I had YouTube TV, I would totally send you a little tip. I have to get in the shower. It's almost 1 here. Thanks for your company and time, the Roman. Well, thank you for being here. And it's also close to 1 a.m. where I am as well. So I completely get it. I love your documentary style RCR stories. It's more digestible and casual, yet informative in a way that makes automotive books on the same subject feel stuffier, slightly informal, more genuine and real. Well, I appreciate that. I'm very happy that my content's able to do that for you. I always wanted to make content that was accessible to a wide possible audience, but deep enough that people who are knowledgeable about the subject can get something good out of it. But more than all of that, I wanted it to be rewatchable. There are some videos on YouTube that help me fall asleep that are literally just very long video essays, like Steak Bentley's Metal Gear Solid 4 was a mistake, or well, this one isn't a video essay, but it's a compilation of all of Norm Macdonald's weekend updates from when he was on SNL. That's a classic. Super meta question for you, Nick. I try to comment on every RCR vid. How can I be more Trent Falkenrath? I mean, I don't want you to actually do this, but Trent Falkenrath is kind of the guy that no father wants in his home. Not his own father and not anybody else's father either, which is to say that, like, no father wants his daughter dating Trent Falkenrath. The whole point of Trent is that he thinks he's James Bond, but he's really more like Johnny English, but, Johnny American, where, he thinks he's like killing it with the ladies, and really all he's doing is just being kind of a buffoon, but in a smooth way, to where it's smooth enough that he can kind of play it off as being on purpose. Like, so, oh, it's satire, bro. It's just like, oh, I'm so effortlessly cool and sexy and hot and dope. And as I'm like falling over in front of a Nissan Pal, it's all these things that are wrapped into this like cartoonish package. Like Trent Falkenrath is kind of my parody of pickup artists from like the early 2000s, because I find those guys kind of who break like seduction and dating and courtship down into like this mathematical algorithm, which I think is like lame as shit. The only thing lamer is, you know, I don't know. I can't think of anything lamer right now, honestly. It's just silly. But yeah, that's kind of how you would be more Trent Falkenrath. But honestly, no one should aspire to be that way. But in a parody way, in a parodic way, it would be to be more like those lousy pickup artist types who view, you know, dating as a math problem to be solved, you know? Please consider RCR stories on Italian design houses, Bertone, Pininfarina, etc. I think it's worthwhile in its impact on the automotive space. Mark 1 Golf, yada yada. That is interesting. I'm always open to suggestions on RCR stories. I think the days of them doing like really big numbers is over, just because of the nature of the algorithm. Like, YouTube is just never going to show our stuff to the same audience that it used to. But Tavares gave a lot of good advice, and one of the things that he mentioned was that if you make stuff that is meaningful to you, the stuff that you want to make, then people will flock to it. And that's kind of what I want to make, is the stuff that I would watch. That's kind of what Race to the Bottom is. I wanted to make something that felt like throwback RCR in some ways, but with kind of this weird game show twist, because the episode ends, every episode ends with kind of like, oh, here's where we are in the standings, blah, blah, blah. But it's also a thing where, like, I'm okay with not being, like, hugely viral anymore. I just want to make a living. That's all. I want to support myself and I want to support the people I love. That's all that really matters to me. Even if I don't, even if I'm not always making what I want, I'm still within the parameters of what I'm doing, trying to make the things that I want. It's just that like the things that I want to make, like RCR stories, take a very, very long time. And sometimes they get put on the back burner and I can't really put them out the way that I want to. So I don't know. It's always something that I'm working on. Alanis is the most underrated automotive YouTuber. She had a nice platform with cars and bids, and the audience didn't appreciate her style, in my opinion. She easily makes cars fun. Sad she's not getting the views alone. Actually, I was really impressed to see her video on the state of automotive YouTube get, I think it was like at 600 something thousand views. Alanis is someone who impresses me because, like, the amount of bullshit that that woman has to put up with, and she's still proudly in the space. She fucking gives back as good as she gets, and she's knowledgeable and enthusiastic. And I follow her on Instagram, and I always find it like amusing when she talks about like her husband's like fantasy league for F1. I think it's F1 actually. And like I don't know her. I really don't. Like we were working at Cars and Bids at the same time, but like I don't know her. But she's someone that like I admire because she's someone who, is putting in the work. She's rebuilding and building on top of rebuilding. And I find that genuinely impressive because it's not easy to be a woman in general, much less a woman in the automotive like space, where it's predominantly male and the viewership is predominantly male. And so I think, she puts up with a lot, and I think that she deserves a lot more credit than she's ever gotten. You know, it. I don't know. I'm a fan. That's all. Is there a way to send you gifts? There's a great winery in Brown County, and I would love to send you some amazing red wines, Blackberry and Red Vista. I mean, we don't have a PO box right now that I'm aware of. But if that changes, I'll let you know. But I genuinely appreciate the offer. I really, really do. Let's see. Is there anything that you want your input in on a long form video that you feel has been done to death? Is there anything that you want to put your input in a long form video that you feel like has been done to death? Yes. The the Yuba County Five. It is the story of five autistic men who went to a basketball game in their Mercury. Yeah. This was a way that I was going to spuriously tie it into everything else. The County 5, Mercury Montego? Is it a Montego? Mercury Montego, 1969 Mercury Montego. I find that case fascinating. It's five autistic men who go on to a basketball game, watch the game, they come home, and they somehow get sidetracked by this man who is having. Oh, no, it's not by the man. They do, like, one of the witnesses is a man who was having a heart attack at the time, who survives the heart attack. He's in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, these guys get derailed on their way home. They're all in their Mercury Montego. Somehow they end up in the woods and in a cabin where they all essentially like either starve or freeze to death, even though there were like food rations, even though there was like a faucet to turn on the heat. And one of them has never been found. And it's a fascinating story that I wanted to actually do a deep dive research into, using the Mercury Montego as a justification for why I would talk about it on a car channel. But it turns out that there was this show that I think only lasted 2 seasons. I forget what network it was on, but it was called Autobiography. So Auto/biography. And one of the episodes was about the Yuba County Five, essentially using the Mercury Montego as sort of like an in a way. And there are so many YouTube channels that have done the Yuba County Five. If it were non-car, one of the things that I would sort of talk about is the comedian, I think it's Nasubi, Eggplant, Japanese comedian who was kept in an apartment as part of a Japanese game show, where he was like basically naked and had to win 1 million yen worth of prizes before they would let him out, I think is how it went. And it was just this long thing. It would have been fascinating, but it's something that has already been covered by, I think, Hulu, and I think another streaming service has one about him. So it kind of defeats the purpose for me. But there is also the thing is that like I am very much still into true crime in a lot of ways. Like it was what I was into as a kid. And I understand that there's a weirdly grim and morbid thing of finding entertainment in the lowest point of some person's life. And I don't really think of it as finding entertainment. It's almost like a weirdly, I don't know what it is, but I don't know that it's entertainment, if that makes sense. I don't know what I'm getting out of it, but it's not necessarily enjoyment. Like I'm fascinated, but I don't know that I'm enjoying what's happening. But there is a story of Mark and John, and I actually started writing a script about it back when I thought like, oh, I should start my own channel and make videos about things that I feel like making videos about that have nothing to do with cars, explore my other passions, and the Mark and John story, and they're called Mark and John because there is no like official name for the two boys. But it was essentially the story of this kid who was essentially in love with his best friend and created this elaborate like CIA, or not CIA, it was MI6, MI5 plot, and used that as a way to manipulate him into, you know, doing these things with him, but also getting his friend to like, it's so hard to explain. It really is, because it's the twistiest story possible. And I don't know how to really tell that story in a way that is both mature and respectful. And so that's kind of what warded me off of telling it, even though it's one of the most fascinating true crime stories I think I've ever come across. But also, I don't know what kind of appetite anybody has for true crime coming from me. So it is what it is. It's just as well. How do I feel about the donut media sphere? I'll admit that I don't know enough about what's going on to truly have an opinion on it. If I end up doing a Roman report on the state of automotive YouTube, obviously I'm going to have to get up to speed on everything going on, so that I can then, you know, talk about it with some measure of intelligence. I don't think everything is as cut and dry as it seems, or maybe it is. I don't know. Uh, but I mean, I it feels like a shift in automotive YouTube, that channels are changing, the people in those positions are changing. RCR is lucky in that we're still independently owned. No one's bought us. I remember in the early days, like Machinima wanted to incorporate us into their like larger sphere, and that was a hard no. At least I think it was Machinima. It might have been some other like content platform, but generally speaking, I mean, there are things that I don't really consider to be worth making a big deal about. Which is not to say that those things aren't big deals. It's just that like we we've been automotive YouTube in general has been fortunate in how it's been able to grow and evolve to become a bit more mainstream than it otherwise would have been, especially in the void left behind by, original Top Gear, in the void left behind by original sort of or by the spin-offs of like Grand Tour and, Hammond, May, and Clarkson. It's all these things that are coalescing as people become drivers. We get younger and younger people getting into these channels all the time because cars are mainstreaming again, cars of TikTok, cars of Instagram, all these different channels that are dedicated not just to high level builds, but how to implement different builds into your own life in a more attainable way. Affordable builds and rebuilds and things that you can do to hack your car to make it more enjoyable. It's all these things where people are getting to the point that automotive enthusiasts aren't all that rare anymore, which is a good thing, but I also feel like it limits the type of content that can rise with the tide. Because I think what people want to see is less of a narrative and more of a progression. Builds, things that start out one way and become another way. I don't know that reviews are necessarily what's hot. Of course, I could be wrong, and it could just be, a thing where it needs to be the right kind of reviews. I mean, I'm still learning. I've been doing this for 10 years now, over 10 years now, and I'm still learning, and I'm always going to be learning because there is no point at which I become a master. Because there is no mastering. You just do and you learn. Throttle House is great, and those guys are great too. Had dinner with them in LA 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Very, very wonderful guys. I forget what they were filming up there. Actually, I don't even think they were filming in LA. I think they were like using LA as a base to where they were actually filming from. But now I forget. Yeah. And hey, I love, this was my first tattoo convention. So I went and was just looking for the cheapest, easiest tattoo I could get. And ended up getting two. And I'm very happy about it. I was not expecting it to be as packed as it was. But you had bank after bank after bank of people who were doing live tattooing. And so you just had people laying all over the place. And, I revealed earlier in the stream, but it's basically, I touched up I had touched up the Orabesh tattoos of my nieces and nephews, but I added my like youngest niece because she hadn't been down there yet. And then this, it's still got the bandage on it, but it's materia from Final Fantasy VII. It's support materia because that's what I want to do for others. Healing materia because that's what I want to do for myself. And luck materia because I hope that that's what the universe does for me, is give me luck. So, yeah. And then I have my like Phoenix wing from Battlestar Galactica that I share with my best friend so that anytime we embrace it, like comes together. But it's a thing where I wanted to get Betty and her VIN number tattooed, like maybe underneath my collarbone or maybe like on the inside bicep somewhere. But I don't, that's something that I couldn't just do spontaneously. I need to plan it out and really have like a design in mind. Plus that would probably be expensive. And so I'd probably hold off on that until, some other time. But, it's the one I'm really thinking about the most. But yeah, there's a lot, on my mind, I guess. I was all into Drive's YouTube reboot to do stories on owners and their cars, and looks like that's gone. Huh. I wonder why. I mean, I hope that... I mean, the immediate thought is that it must not have been performing, but it's also a thing where I think, ooh, that's a good point. I mean, I had thought about that where, like, if I put the VIN number there, that people might think of it as like a weird concentration camp tattoo, where, like, I genuinely don't want to, like, anyone to think that I'm doing that, even if it's a lot more numbers. But that's not really something that's viable, because you can't always expect people to understand. I mean, maybe I would just get it on my inside, a place that, like, people wouldn't really see. So, I mean, that's a good point that people do that for their ancestors who were in the camps. But that's not my story, and I don't want to co-opt that story for myself. Not even, like, accidentally co-opt it. But yeah, Petrolicious is gone. Huh. Weird. I'm learning all sorts of stuff today, tonight, tomorrow, technically, here in Pennsylvania. But yeah. Um, so next Saturday, Brian and I were invited to Philadelphia, and I just decided to go with. We're going to be doing a live car roast, and I have I'm not a part of the community. The way that I would explain it is that I'm never uncomfortable. Oh wait, no. I'm never I'm not comfortable because I'm not a part of the community, but I'm never uncomfortable because I'm always made to feel welcome. So, I I'm completely neutral and a completely supportive person. I completely support it, no problems. I'm just not. I guess I just don't always fit in, you know, and that's okay. I support everybody's right to have the type of fun they want to have. As long as it's all, nobody's getting hurt, everything's in the bounds of the law, all that stuff. So I'm happy and proud to be a guest. I'm just wondering if I'm going to be all that funny. I wish I were. But I mean, really, I'm there to support my friend. And less out of anything that I have to contribute. But yeah, I mean, it should be something that gets me out of the house at least. So that'll be good. Because yeah, like, I haven't really been as let me undo that. There we go. Oh, this is another moderator. Oh, wait, show. And I'm gonna handle this. No, they shouldn't have handled that. But yeah, I'm I think I've been unhappy for a while, not because of any one thing. I think there's been a lot of isolation related to the nature of the work that I do because I'm doing it all day, and there isn't really a time where it turns off. There isn't really a time where I'm not doing it, because I'm always trying to think of jokes, or if I go somewhere, I think of ways that I could turn it into content. And I think today was like the first day in a very long time where I went somewhere and I had that thought of, like, turn it into content, make it something. But I have to allow myself the ability to exist in a space and have an experience, and for that to be enough. That I can't look at my life as something that I have to constantly monetize. But if I can't monetize every hour of my day, then what am I doing? You know, if I'm not making a video, if I'm not writing a script, if I'm not working on a listing. I have to do something. And I'm thankful. I'm so thankful for all of the opportunities that I have to be able to do these things. This is not a complaint whatsoever. I'm much happier doing the things that I do than I was last year, not being able to necessarily do things that I wanted to. But I do get burned out and I do get lonely, and loneliness is hard, because there comes a critical point in time where you realize that people don't ask you anymore because they know the answer is no. Like, even family don't ask you anymore to, like, if they're going to somewhere. Friends, family, like, they know what the answer is, so they don't ask anymore. And I guess I downplay a bit how important it is to even be asked, you know? That even when the answer is no, it means a lot to me that they ask, because it says that they want me there and that they're hoping that this time the answer will be yes. But when they don't ask at all, it just means we don't really need you there, you know? We're going to have our good time with or without you, so what are we even bothering, like, asking you for? And I know that that's not what it is. I know that that's my mind creating an offense, but it's hard not to think that way sometimes. And so I don't want to create a life for myself that precludes me being asked to things, you know? Because I've created a life where people don't ask me things anymore. And that's okay. I've learned to be okay with it because I love my own company so much. I've learned to love it. I shouldn't say I've learned to love it. Ever since I was a little kid, I was kind of a loner. My niece is very much like me in that way because she's 11, 12. She's 12. And she's exactly like I was at that age. Just, you know. But I think it's a thing where pain is concealment, right? The pain is not just in whatever it is you're feeling. It's in the idea that you have to conceal that you're feeling it. And that's what I do. I save it for my therapist, mostly. But I don't always feel like I'm getting what I need out of it. And so I put my expression into RCR scripts. I put, like that LeSabre script. I think it's the LeSabre. There was this very, like, long soliloquy in there that's like all me. But yeah, no, I haven't considered that about having multiple therapists. I should, but I also don't trust my health insurance to cover all of it. I don't know. It's a thing where loneliness saps your desire to do anything about it. I don't want to be back on the dating scene. I don't. I'm fine. I miss the things that go along with sort of being in a relationship, like the companionship and the just the feeling that, like, there's someone out there who thinks about you the way that you think about them. But I don't think I'm cut out for the responsibility of being a partner in someone else's happiness, you know? Sending hate from my Volvo V70 drivers. Oh man, I'm never gonna live that video down. And I shouldn't, because, every place that I saw says that that's a great car. But for whatever, I mean, I just didn't like that particular V70. But all love to people in V70s, In a general sense, I love, I love the sort of the dialogue that's created by Swedish automakers, because there is something that is very engaging about Swedish automobiles, such as they are, because their construction is so, like, not uniform, but more like there's a consistency that creates cars that are generally, like, they're not exciting, but there's something that you can feel confident in and that you can kind of have a good time driving. And so I think the V70 in some ways was kind of maybe me building up something in my head that it ended up not being. I mean, I'm not going to retract the review, obviously, because that's how I felt about that car. This is how I still feel about that car. But I also accept that, much like the GMC Sierra, it's not that all of them are bad. It's just that the one that I drove was bad, and that's what I have to review. So it's a thing where I can't apply a blanket across every generation of every car just because that one model was bad. And I hope that that's not what I'm communicating when I give a car a bad review, but I also understand that there are limitations to and shortcomings of the way that I talk about cars. And so I don't want to give the impression that I'm just writing off every version of that car, but I also understand that sometimes is a byproduct of the way that I write scripts. So, let's see. Roman in that uncomfortable position of being hetero in the space of modern entertainment, a rare enclave where being gay is not only common but kind of expected. I mean, in high school, everybody thought I was gay because, well, okay, maybe not everybody, but people thought I was gay all the time because I was wearing, like, polyester shirts, and I was into pop music, and I knew, like, there would be trivia nights where, like, people would be playing Trivial Pursuit, and one of the questions, anytime they'd come to an entertainment question, I was on top of it, and they're like, okay, you're never going to get this one. So she's Michael Jackson's best friend, Elizabeth Taylor. They're like, that's impossible. How would you possibly not? I'm like, how would you not? That his best friend was Elizabeth Taylor. Like, for me, that was common knowledge. But, like, normal people don't get home and do their homework in front of, like, Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight at 7. But those were the things that gave me comfort because I loved the idea of, like, I guess because I got into the idea of, like, old time Hollywood, that it ballooned into this fondness for current Hollywood at the time. And it created this, I don't know, I became obsessed with the Oscars and have been since I was 12 years old. And so it resulted in people thinking that I was gay, and also my having a lot of, like, gay friends, woman friends, gay woman friends, gay guy friends, obviously. And it's a thing where, I mean, after my father passed, my father figure was a gay man. It's just part and parcel of how I was raised. And so I never viewed being gay as anything that someone should have to feel like they need to conceal. But I also understand why people feel they need to conceal it. But I'm not gay myself. But it's also a thing where, all love to all gay people, everybody in the universe, because I just think there's something fundamentally sad about people having to struggle and deny who they really are so that just certain people won't be made uncomfortable, or so that they won't have to be persecuted and put in physical danger, I just think it's wrong, People should be afforded the right to live however they want to within the bounds of the law. But yeah, let's go. So, LeSabre video is great. So I want very similar. No too custom. Oh, nice. Having totally opposite people for therapists can give a more rounded feeling in your life. No, that's good. That does make a good point. I want people to know that I care about them. Always, always. That's valid. Finally wound up in a promising relationship at nearly 32, and I'm so confused at what I did to deserve them. And yet that was me in my most recent relationship. Like at every point, I felt like I don't deserve this, and maybe I was self-sabotaging in some way, you know? But we are still incredibly close, so it was just sort of a lateral move back into friendship. But it's still a thing where I constantly wonder what it is I did wrong, other than just I don't know. And sometimes you don't do anything wrong. It's the Kobayashi Maru of social living. I work in the therapy field, and the way you describe burnout is so common in this field as well as any business owners. You can't sacrifice your life for something you can't take with you. And yet, like, that's the thing. It's like you can't take the business with you, and you can't take anything that you get from the business with you. But you have to live in the corporeal world. And so it's constantly that push pull between, you know, if I make the money but don't have the ability to enjoy the fruits of any of my labor, then what's the point of any of it? And that's kind of what the tattoo convention was about, of just like, let me do something for myself that doesn't involve doing something for or with other people, that I'm just me. I'm out there on my own. I'm doing what I feel like doing, and that is meaningful to me. Even though, like, I don't know that I love either tattoo that I got, but I do believe that it's part of the story, the narrative that I'm putting on myself, which is that, you know, they're spontaneous. They appear obviously spontaneous, and they're going to be on me forever. And that's okay, because all of us is a story. We're our own walking autobiography. You know, the things that we experience are just chapters in a very large book that that only ever gets published when we pass. Or rather, I should say that it's published continuously as we're living, and only gets its final volume when we pass, because then we can see our lives spread out by others in its totality, by those who mourn us, by those who remember us. Everything about life is about maintaining a continuity of narrative of who we are, who we planned to be, but who we ended up being. I'm not the person that I thought I would be, but in some ways I'm better than I thought I would be. Although strangely enough, as a child, I would always imagine my adult version being pretty close to what I look like right in this moment. The only difference being that, like, I remember, like, being 6 years old, my thought of what I would be like as an adult was always lumberjack, like, flannel shirt, bushy beard, glasses, and some kind of a hat. That was always the constant. It was a constant that in my mind's eye, that's what I look like as an adult. And also kind of fat, like, you know, like fat, husky, kind of tall. I did the fat thing. I didn't really do the tall thing. But it is what it is. Or the husky thing, but not the tall thing. Like, I can't even give any advice. Oops. That's okay, dude. Don't be mad at that. Spraying cars in a bubble sands, public opinion is a luxury sometimes. Yes, it is. Still mad y'all hated on the first gen Tacoma years ago. Hey, fair. Completely understand. People enjoy Geo Metros, Vieros, etc. without the weight impression bias of comparison. That is a true point. People are free to do what they want the way they want to do it, and love the things that they love without judgment, hopefully. I mean, I would love to create safe spaces for people to love cars without judgment, but I also recognize that that's not really what viewership prefers. You know, it needs to be but it's also not what we do. Automotive journalism has to involve criticism, it has to involve judgment, but it doesn't preclude any opinion from having nuance. You know what I mean? I've watched this channel ever since y'all did a review of the Chevy Sonic. I still have this car and I still hate this car. Nice. Well, I'm sorry for that, but yeah. I got asked if I was ace once in high school because I just didn't talk about what I like since I figured it was a private matter. Exactly. You shouldn't have to, share things that you don't want to share. Gotta go. Please tell Brian I want to ride with him in my 2006 Corolla. Uninhibited T-girl over here. Come on. LOL. Yes. For all I know, he's watching this now. Baz. Never understood why, unless it was sports, if you had deep knowledge of something, it was Shane. I mean, I used to be able to name every Oscars Best Picture winner from the beginning to now, and people thought it was weird, and so I stopped doing it. I used to know, I still know a lot about pro wrestling, like a lot. And so anytime people had a question about something pro wrestling related that would just need to be a one word answer, I would give them a whole history thing about, Jim Crockett Promotions in the 1980s and the, Black Saturday in the NWA, all these things. 32 here, about to be 33. Totally sabotaged my last relationship and feels bad. I'm so sorry to hear that, Von Waffenberg. Derek Simpson. I really don't like my therapist. I don't think she's helping me the way I need. That's the kind of the impetus behind beginning to shop anew. Bro just wanted to be a lumberjack in the world. Maybe. Lumberjack in the woods. Sorry. Maybe. Yeah, I've had girls tell me that I have a good heart and I'm a good person after they are in their own relationships with kids. Yeah, nah. It's a tale as old as time. Our childhood desires and ideals influence so much about our adult lives, it emboldens and sabotages us. That is a good way of putting it. Very, very good way. Anything you look forward to on your Australia trip, not RCR related? Honestly, just hanging out with Matto. Matto is our fixer in Australia. And he seems like such a good, down-to-earth dude. And he mentioned that he would get us, good whiskey. And for whatever reason, I just love the idea of being able to just chill and drink whiskey with Matto. And just not think about things. Because, part of it is just not wanting to have my job feel like a job, even though that's a very first world problem. Your job should feel like a job. Not everybody should have, or not everybody does have the opportunity to have a job that feels like fun. I'm lucky in that I enjoy the job that I do. But I also understand that there are days that are easier than others and days that are harder than others, and that's okay. It goes with the territory. I just work a lot, and I wish I had more of a life than I do, but I don't. But I also understand that, if it's a choice between having a life and having a good, steady income, I think I'm probably going to choose the income, and that's probably to my own detriment, Maybe I'll learn at some point, but it's not going to be today. How many years did you have Sally, by the way? I had a crappy base model Focus from 2007 in March of this year, and no matter how miserable a car can be, you get very used to and attached to it. Well, Silicone Sally was Brian's car, the Honda Fit. I forget how long we had that for, actually. He had that for. It was a great car, honestly, from what I remember. But how long I had Betty? I had her from 2015 until last year. So I was really, and I've been having recurring dreams about this car. I'm not kidding. I've literally been dreaming about getting Betty back because I think I can almost pinpoint the downturn in my mental health with the departure of that car, because even as it was stressing me out and making me miserable, I think that car was such an intrinsic part of me that I feel an absence. I feel a phantom pain without it. But I also know that she's in a good place, a better place than in my care, because I don't think anything thrives in my care. But it is what it is. But yes, you do get very attached to these things, and it's understandable. Uh, eh, show. Might as well show it. Oh, another moderator handled this. I wonder if it's Brian. Well, what other moderator would it be? Other than me not realizing I already handled it. I think the car that I wanted the most in a review is Renault Twingo. Greetings from Argentina. Oh, hey, how you doing? Never been. I never thought to be. Interesting. As a creator, how do you all deal with the reality of parasocial relationships, especially since you work with and drive fans' cars? So Brian and I kind of differ on this. I know that like it is something, and he's talked about this in past RCR diaries, where he has like a limited bandwidth to be able to interact with, you know, or he has. I shouldn't say that because I don't want to speak for him, but I think like what I I don't think I'll ever stop enjoying people like saying hi if they see me in the street, or people messaging me on whatever platform, because it means they care. And when they don't do that anymore, then they don't care anymore. Which is a weird way of looking at it, because most people who have a platform of any kind don't necessarily have people who message them. But I met a lot of good people, and I feel fortunate to have met good people. To I feel fortunate that RCR has fans that, I mean, in my experience, they're all just regular people. You know, they're not like stalkery. They're not like overbearing. They're just regular ass people, and I love that because you can have a conversation with regular people, and they're just they don't demand anything of you. They understand you're busy and you don't always respond in a decent time frame, but I don't know. I just feel like I'm positive on it because I don't think I've experienced any of the negatives of it yet, except in one circumstance, which even then, like, I still consider it kind of a positive. And it's not something worth talking about, but it's just a thing that I think is, you know, something that over time you learn about yourself more. You learn about the people who watch you more because they share that with you. And it's nice to be able to meet the people whose cars you drive, to stay in contact with them after, stay in touch, maybe form a friendship, you know, and maybe, you know, hang out after or do their car again. Or it's all these other things where it doesn't have to be, you know, the type of friendship where, you know, you have to let me drive your car, otherwise we have nothing to talk about. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. I love the RCR car meet every year, and hopefully it becomes every year, because it gives me the opportunity to kind of, I don't know, it allows me to say thanks to the people who watch my stuff, allow me to have a job. You know, I don't exist in YouTube without these people, without you all. You know, I'm not under any delusion that I'm special enough to do this without you guys. And I don't mean that to take anything away from myself, but just that, like, who am I really without the support of people who have been loyal, and not just like the people who've been watching a long time, but like the people who are like new and decided to give it a shot. Just click like or hit subscribe or share it with somebody, you know? People who, you know, freaking donate to the Patreon or super chats or anything. Like, I will never stop being in a position where it stops, I will never be in a position where it stops mattering to me, where it stops being something that deeply affects me on a personal level, where it doesn't mean the world to me, because it always is going to, because it always does and it always has. So yeah. Am I going to review a Ute? I think so. Brian is scheduling the card, so I don't actually know what we're doing yet. I think I know what my race to the bottom is going to be, but it's not a Ute. At least I. Ooh, or is it? Shoot, I don't remember what my race to the bottom for Australia is. Shoot. Okay, I guess I'll figure that out. What Aussie mobile are you most hoping to experience? Well, I mean, honestly, anything Holden, which is a really boring answer, but I find a certain novelty in it. Either that or a Ute, because I personally have never driven a Ute. Brian has. So I kind of want to drive a Ute and get that opportunity. But yeah, I bought my Sonata Turbo in 2012, and it has been tough solid. For factory, was claimed at 275 horsepower plus. It was actually fun to drive. I believe it. I had to get rid of the Honda Odyssey that my family had since I was 6 months old. I'm now 22. I 110% understand how you feel about needing to get rid of Betty. My Odyssey needed $3,000 of repair work. God damn. I'm sorry. Crazy how vehicles get intertwined into our family lore, and how the void never leaves after you get rid of it. That's true. Very well said. How often do people email or try to contact you all for car submissions? A lot. The race to the bottom submissions have slowed, mainly because I don't think I've been pushing it as hard as I could be. But I also have a very big backlog of race to the bottom submissions that I need to go through to find the next one. So that's going to be a task, but one I'm looking forward to. So yeah. My family had a 98 Camry with 350k miles that we had till I was like 14, and I cried when they sold it. I feel that. Still think about it a lot. It's weird how you trip up our personality and choices even into vehicles we get passed down to us, or is the only thing we can find afford. Yeah, you know. I mean, it's a thing where I think a lot of there is like a socio-cultural element to cars that get passed down. Because there are cars that, and I think we talk about this a bit in the Buick LeSabre thing, where it's not a car that a young person would necessarily choose for themselves. It's one that they would get, that they would inherit, essentially. And so you end up in a place where what you want is not necessarily what you get, which is the refrain of adolescence and young adulthood, and in some cases in life in general, or of life in general. You want to be able to have a dynamic and varied assortment of automotive experiences, but when you're young, you're sort of, fenced in by limitations of youth, of finances, of mobility, and that's kind of what we're talking about in the LeSabre review. But yeah, 3-car garage challenge, daily, track, project, or classic under 50k collectively. Let's see, daily, Camry, track. Give me a second. Honda S2000, classic, AMC Eagle 4x4. Technically, it is a classic. But if you want like Winga Dinga classic, the Stingray with the split rear window. Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. I would come to you guys if for some reason you would want to review my Sonata. I mean, I might. I don't recall if I don't think I've individually reviewed a Hyundai Sonata. Let me type in RCR Sonata. But let's see. Huh, I don't think we've done a Sonata at all because every I typed in RCR Sonata and it just came up with a bunch of like RCR playlists from the official channel. If you ever want to drive a big turbo Focus ST and are in Georgia, let me know. Yeah, definitely. Hey Roman, longtime sub. Actually, I discovered your channel from your Fiero video. Much love from the land of twerking and donks. That was the first video that I had a voice role in, or any sort of like on camera front facing role in. This is during the time where we still weren't like showing our faces at all. And Brian messaged me that morning when the video dropped because he had seen the comments before I'd even woken up and just wanted to like let me know that like it wasn't anything that I did wrong and don't listen to people. And now like there are a lot of people who have a lot of fondness for that video. It hurt at the time because it was my first experience with things, but like looking at it objectively, like why wouldn't people have a problem with it? It's not the voice they're used to. It's a completely different guy who wasn't as good at doing any of it. So I totally get the frustration, and I don't begrudge them that. And I feel like I've done more than enough in the intervening years to be able to at least earn the respect of some of them. But also, I have a thing of where I refuse to engage with like overtly negative comments. One, because I don't believe it's ever a good look to be arguing on the internet. And two, because there are so many people who leave positive messages who never get responses where it might potentially make their day. So why are you not responding to them, but you're responding to like the person who's shitty to you is the one who gets the response and not the one who's actually being like decent and good to you. I just always find that unfair when like content creators will actually pay oxygen to people who talk out of turn to them and provide no useful, worthwhile contribution to anything ever. So, regular train review, or when rail to the bottom. Rail to the bottom is a brilliant name. I don't even know how we would film a train. Like, how would you even get like the in motion shots? Because you would have to have like an or like a road running alongside the train that you have the camera car set up, and you'd have to be like gunning the camera car because the train wouldn't just be able to just stop on a dime, you know? So, I don't know. That would have to all be point of view footage probably, but I don't even know when or how. So, my family put 211,000 miles on that Odyssey driving around Ohio and most of the rest of the US. First car I ever drove, even past the parallel parking part of the driver's test in it somehow. That is impressive. That is genuinely impressive, doing it in a Honda Odyssey. Hey Roman, long time sub. Actually, I discovered you. Oh wait, no, I said that. Much love from the land of twerking and donks. Ah, nice. The Death of Pontiac documentary style video was amazing. I know a lot of YouTube is similar content to that, but you do it so damn well with research and pacing. I appreciate that. I really do. I want to do so much more of those. I really do. Miles in Transit is basically rail to the bottom already. Rail to the bottom. Just take the NYC MTA. Done. I need to go back to New York City so badly. I haven't been there since, I guess, our final New York auto show in, it was either 2021 or 2022. I don't recall. I want to take my niece there because she's never been, and she's always wanted to go. She's very much I don't know, she's interested in cities, so. But yeah. Are you doing New York Comic Con this year? I'll be there Saturday. I wish. I wanted to, but I missed the fan verification deadline. So I guess it'll have to be next year. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that stuff. Because I miss New York Comic Con, I really do. I always loved going. It was always the highlight of my year for the like 4-ish years that I got to go. But it always feels like more. I wound up in New York City the other month. Uber rider headed from Bethlehem. Oh, damn. Not taking the trip like that again. I don't blame you. Also went from Quakertown to Philly. Way, way underpaid. Wow. Yikes. Man, Quakertown Farmers Market is a pretty good place. Yeah, that just popped in my head. I'm sorry. If you haven't yet, you guys need to do a solstice or sun review. We did a solstice in at Mount St. Helens. Uh, this was about 2 years ago when we traveled to Portland, Oregon, and then road tripped up to where Mount St. Helens is. And that was, yeah, that was a wild experience, really, because, I mean, I wasn't really thinking of how blown away I would be by just how, like, beautiful everything was up there, you know? Because I'm someone who's not really, like, phased by, I guess, the inherent beauty of nature, but maybe it's just like an age thing. Like I was too young to really appreciate it, so I didn't. But and even being just too young could literally just mean like 4 years younger than however old I am right now, which I'm 39, so whatever. When I was a kid, there was this huge old school locomotive that sat in the middle of the park in my city, and it's gone. And there's a big empty rectangle shape there where it used to sit. That's oddly sad. My great grandpa was a Ford dealership owner, and he bought his family, at the time, an Edsel. And my grandpa said it was the worst car they owned. I showed him the documentary and enjoyed it. That makes me happy. I had a thought of combining, because it was very successful when I took all of my Corvette RCR stories, combined them into one video, and threw them on the second channel as like a throwaway. Like for whatever reason, that did like hundreds of thousands of views, which is insane to me. But like I was thinking of doing that, of taking the Edsel video and the Fordlandia video and combining them as like the failures of Henry Ford and throwing that on the second channel. The problem is that the audio quality from the Edsel is in no way comparable to the audio quality on Fordlandia. So I would have to re-record the Edsel, which means I would probably have to re-record Fordlandia too, because I feel like the audio quality is generally like somewhat better now than it was when I did the Fordlandia. It's weird. Manly reviews. Thank you for your compliment. Love your inputs on this vids, man. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. I'm very lucky to get to do what I do, and trust me, I know it. But yeah, York Railways has some really cool equipment. It's a short line owned by Norfolk Southern operating around Greater York. Huh. I have not experienced it. I probably should at some point. I live right by the former plant for the Sky/Solstice, and it's a crying shame how badly everyone handled the end of that. I mean, the Solstice is one of those cars that, like, if it would still be around in some form today if it was linked to any other brand but Pontiac. I believe that. It was a special car, but it's not something that's going to serve. The Solstice, I can't think of a performance car other than like something along the lines of like a Miata or a Corvette that could save the brand it's attached to if it's already trending in the negative. So I don't know. Got torn down and eventually is an Amazon warehouse, and aren't they all? They're all Amazon warehouses now. But yeah, both York and Lewistown still have street running rail. Middletown near Harrisburg used to. Would you and Brian ever think of exploring more of the places east of Seattle or northwest Washington? Super beautiful out there. Go in April for the Tulip Festival, about 70 miles south of Canada. Sounds lovely. Do you guys have any plans to continue the podcast, or is it done for now? Yeah, it's done for now. I mean, like, with the second job, like, I just don't have time. I really don't. I wish I did. Maybe if the Patreon kicks off, and, you know, I don't know. Like, so much is depending on the Patreon taking off for me to be able to do, like, other things, like RCR stories and maybe more podcasts. Maybe. But I do auction listings now for cars and bids, which I really do enjoy because I get to learn a lot. But it's very time consuming, which is not a complaint. It's just a reality. And so, yeah, I'm job seeking in the Allentown area. Honestly, not picky, just something to save up all here. Understandable. And best of luck to you on that. Seriously. I was stationed in Whidbey Island. Absolutely beautiful. I miss that area. Mm, anything island. Well, I mean, I guess Manhattan's an island, but I do love Manhattan. Just, oh, oh, it's gonna be 2 in the morning here. Uh, so you like list the cars for the auction? Oh, I just write the listings, some of them. Um, so I just help assemble them, and it's wonderful. I'm very fortunate, and I know it sounds like a line, but trust me, I'm so fortunate to get to be able to do this because I'm helping people find value for their cars, but also allowing the cars to find new homes so that they can continue to be on the road. Like, it's so important to me because we're in an age where it all sounds very old man, but we are in an age where um like these certain cars are like disappearing, and sites like Cars and Bids keep these cars on the road by putting these people in touch with the people who want to keep them on the road. It's like I can't imagine being an auto enthusiast and having a problem with like auction websites that help keep these cars on the road in the general sense. I mean, it's just a type of, and maybe it's naive, I don't know, but for me it borders on an absolute good. So I mean, it's just important to me to be able to help people in that way, even if it's maybe they don't, you know maybe it's not what they're expecting. Maybe it's not the type of car that people click on they're expecting to find. But they find a car, they fall in love with it, they put in a bid, and all of a sudden we're off to the races. So yeah, I would love to review dogs. Dogs are great. Maybe for a Christmas review, because Christmas is where we allow ourselves to get silly. Either it's something super expensive, or something that isn't a car, or something that is so ridiculous that you can't actually justify putting it on the channel. So the one year I did the horse, rest in peace, Belle. She was a great, great American paint horse. Or you know, the the lawnmower that Brian did, or the Lotus Elise, or the drinkable Ford that I did, which was essentially a smoothie that Ford made out of the organic components that would be implemented into their cars going forward. And so all of these are super weird things to do for Christmas. But yeah, it was very special, and it was very meaningful. Just because Christmas means a lot to me. Although I would argue Thanksgiving means more for my family, where we just enjoy Thanksgiving a lot. More April Fool's style regular blank reviews that are done straight. I want to do more regular state reviews on this second channel, but again, it's just a time thing. Like, I need to do the things that make money here and now. But for all I know, maybe one of those videos would take off, and I would be glad for having done them. So maybe I'm gonna explore and get into that and rock and roll. It's like people crying about automatic transmission enthusiasts shoot themselves in the foot because they want to be extra special. Huh. Let's see. How are you and Brian doing? I hope you're both well. I'm all right. Like, I'm all right in the sense that, like, I don't really have a reason to be upset about anything, but there are times where, like, I have a low mood and struggling, and my mental health isn't always great, but it's not anything that I think people have to worry about me for. It's something that I'm just working on my own. And, well, not on my own, I have a therapist, but, it's like trying to find balance in my life, and the struggle to find balance. It's not always easy. So, finding CR for the first time by looking for a professional, honest review, exactly how you're supposed to find the channel. Exactly. Well, I mean, when Brian came up with the name, he couldn't believe that no one had taken the name yet. And also that the idea of it was a troll. People would go looking for like a regular car review and find a review that was anything but. And so it's kind of genius in that way when he came up with it. Argentina has some great cars. We have the Falcon from 1966 to 1991 with the same body, but with updated trims and a great Grand Tourer called Ica Renault Torino. A great car. I'll have to look that up. Yeesh. Hot damn. All right, well, it's 2 a.m. I should probably start wrapping up in the next, 5-10 minutes. So, yeah. What else to talk about? Yeah, now I sound like Cody Rhodes, what do you want to talk about? Is there anything going on in the world today? Why is the Orville trending? A big thing is going for production for Orville Season 5 slated to begin in January. Oh, okay, cool. Good for them. I've never watched the Orville, but I probably should at some point because I like classic Star Trek. So, yeah. Thoughts on the early 2000s Cavalier? Why am I having a hard time picturing it in my mind's eye right now? That's how late it is. I mean, I don't have any personal experience with it, or at least not to the extent that I could have a more informed opinion. But I almost feel like the coupe is basically an Oldsmobile Alero. It's kind of like a lateral move. It's almost like the Oldsmobile Alero is the Cavalier Coupe's Waluigi. They're just like opposites in this weird way, but similar. I don't know. It seems like a fine car. Like, it seems like the most 2000s car that could possibly 2000. But yeah. I'm stocking on a big case of Modelo Chelada. Regular fireworks review. Oh man, I don't think I've ever set off my own fireworks before. I'm like a failed Pennsylvanian. Favorite John Hughes movie? Mine's Uncle Buck, Bueller, or The Breakfast Club. All right, so funnily enough, if you've ever heard of The Blacklist and not the James Spader Show or the Joseph McCarthy move in the 50s, Hollywood, it's a list of the most popular unproduced screenplays in Hollywood, as voted on by agents and screenwriters and other professionals. And it gets released every year, and it's a big deal to get on the blacklist because that suddenly, like, production companies are going to want your script. There have been Oscar winners that, like The Imitation Game, that have been on the blacklist. And so there was a script on there one year called Hughes, which was a biopic of sorts that was essentially impossible to film because I don't know how John Hughes' estate would ever allow it, because it's essentially this it's this script that portrays him as a person who could only make those types of movies because he was painfully weird and trapped in this eternal adolescence. And it involved him becoming physically attracted to the stars that were part of the Brat Pack. And it created these, like, really weird scenes. And I don't know to what extent, like, any of it is true. It could have just been a script that was intended to get Hollywood's attention and then, hey, hire us for other jobs. I don't know. But it was interesting to me because it kind of colored my perception of John Hughes movies, in that, it wasn't so much someone who had a keen awareness of what it was like to be a teenager manifesting in adulthood, so much as it was a guy constantly trying to go back and relive the past, which is not fair because I don't know if any of that script is true. But I will say that ultimately, John Hughes's movies are they're always going to be important to me. I love them all so much. Bueller is it's weird. Like it's a great movie, but for me, like John Hughes has like a couple of better ones. I like Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, freaking oh, let's say anything a John Hughes movie. Wait, let me see. John Hughes filmography. 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, Uncle Buck. Home Alone. I know he wrote the script for Home Alone, and if that's true, then that would be the answer. But if we're talking about him as a director, which I assume we are, then, huh. Oh my gosh, just give me the films. All right. National Lampoon's Class Reunion. He was a writer. All right. What about National Lampoon's European Vacation? Christmas Vacation. All right, he was a writer on that and a producer. And so if we're not just limited to films he directed, then the answer is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, followed by Home Alone, which he also wrote but didn't direct. But if we're just talking about the movies that he directed, oh, he didn't direct Some Kind of Wonderful. He just wrote it. Because I love that movie too. Like shit. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. He did direct that. Okay, that is a great pick. Bueller. Oh, he didn't actually direct Pretty in Pink, so that rules that out. He directed Weird Science. Wow. Breakfast Club, 16 Again. You know, honestly, of the movies that he's actually directed, I would say The Breakfast Club. Like, it's the most complete. It sums up the John Hughes filmography in a way that no other of his movies does. This the dude in my phone. I sure am. Let's see. Movies that bring back the most fond memories for you. For me, it's Major League and Field of Dreams. Probably, I mean, I have so many movies like that are all for different reasons. But two I'm going to list because they were just the first two that came to mind are Jurassic Park, the first one, and Forrest Gump. Because those were movies that I saw in theaters with my family, and I have very fond memories of those childhood theater experiences. And they're very meaningful. Spider-Man No Way Home was another big one because it was a great theater experience with my nephew. Same with Avengers Endgame. But, I mean, there are so many different things that are just as a movie theater experience. Because I always think of things as the theater experience. But home viewing wise, I just remember going through the whole Godfather trilogy with my family in the attic one time as a teenager, and it was just very involved and gripping. Back before we all collectively would fall asleep during every movie that we tried to watch. So, yeah. All right. But yeah, I think that'll about do it for me. Oh, Allion Bass says, I love your shitbox car reviews. Well, I appreciate that you love them. Gonna keep making them. I hope. Always. I'm always gonna try. But this has been I don't know, hopefully productive talking session. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed just sort of hanging out with y'all. And thank you for watching this and for watching RCR every Monday. And I don't know. I really appreciate you guys. I really do. And I just want to say thanks for being you. And so I will. Oh, well, thank you for the nice words, Grape Chatter. I really do appreciate it. And a dog on the internet. You are a dog on the internet, and I'm glad to see that you are on the internet. I don't know what I was going for there, but yeah. So new review on Monday, and hopefully I can finish the RCR car meet videos sometime soon. I don't know if it'll be out next week, probably the week after, maybe. But thank you for watching. Everyone, have a great rest of your night and a great rest of your weekend. Good night, everyone. How do I end this? Oh, like, oh, thank you, Esker Outcome. I appreciate that. Let me like that. Wonderful. Love you too, dude. Have an awesome weekend. Oh, hey, thank you, Southpaw. Right as I go for the X. You guys are just lovely. Lovely people. Good night.